Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Quarantine Film Series. We are back doing these conversations, having these conversations all over again. We started this broadcast back in March, done over 120 episodes until now. And a lot of my friends were saying, why did you go off the air? So where did you go? We didn't go anywhere. We just took a little bit of a break, and now we're back coming to you live from Atlanta, my parents' place here. So Mom, please, if you can get off the Wi-Fi, we need the full speed ahead. Thank you very much. We host these conversations because the creative calendar has still been canceled and postponed. When the quarantine first went into effect, I got so many emails from musicians and friends. Their concerts, their gigs have been canceled. Not only musicians, but filmmakers. The film festival has been canceled. It's just a difficult environment for the creative community. Sure, we've adapted, and there's new ways of doing business, but the in-person concerts, film festivals, events have, as you know, it's not what it used to be, and I think it's for the foreseeable future. So this is a platform for creative individuals to share their remarkable projects. And we love producing these to so that you can get to know the people behind the content that you love. And these are the stories that provoke, challenge, and entertain us. So if you want to know what's coming up, stay tuned to my social media. Feel free to ask a question in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. I'm in Atlanta. My producer Shane's in Madrid right now. So let us know. Leave a comment in the comments below, and we'll read it up on screen to know where in the world we're broadcasting to. All right. With that, we have a remarkable show today. Really a leader, an inspiring leader in the film space, the documentary space. A remarkable documentary producer, director, series producer. She has her fingerprint on so many things, and her organization does. It's going to be quite an experience to talk to her and learn about what she's doing. And because everything all the big films are out there, especially in the documentary world, she's involved with. So please welcome the remarkable Jenny Raskin to the Quarantine Film Series. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. It's wonderful that you've been doing this. We do need this connection, definitely.
Thank you. Great to have you. First, I want to ask you, how has the quarantine affected you? What did you have lined up that's been canceled or postponed?
Well, so Impact Partners is an organization, executive produces a number of films at a time. So we had films impact in all different ways. We had 4 films scheduled to premiere at Tribeca Film Festival, which was canceled. It didn't go virtual, it was completely canceled. A couple of those have then went on to be accepted at other great festivals, which were then canceled. So that's kind of navigating a whole new way of trying to bring a film out into the world and find a distributor for it. We have a certain kind of path that independent films generally take, and they go through film festivals. And without that it's definitely been a reinvention process. And then we've also had films that were in the production process, and those were greatly delayed. A couple have changed creatively because they involved a lot of international travel. The ones that are smaller productions have moved forward with production and been safe about it and developed great protocols for shooting during this time. And I think in some ways, documentary films have a little bit of an advantage over fiction right now, because we tend to have really small crews. Documentary directors tend to be really scrappy and used to dealing with things changing all the time, stories changing. So those have managed to move forward. And then the projects that were in post-production have for the most part stayed on schedule. So those were kind of in the lucky window.
Got it. I do want to ask you sort of a personal creative question. Sure. How do you structure your time during the day? Do you have a routine? Do you wake up at the same time? Does the coffee taste the same? What does your day-to-day look like? And how do you spur creativity?
Yeah, it is really challenging, as we all know. I spend a lot of time on Zoom like everyone else. And, we have a relatively small staff of 6 people, but we work really closely together. So we've tried different things throughout this time period of, meeting more frequently with check-ins, having more kind of social time, that we can be more creative and try to instill more brainstorming. Like, let's all have, appetizers and have an hour where we're just catching up about our lives, and then move into more creative conversations rather than the more like sit down at your desk in front of Zoom. You lose so much. And then with filmmakers, we had done this before. We worked, most often we would try to be sitting in a room with a director and an editor when we're looking at a rough cut or something like that. But we had, some established ways of doing things remotely, because sometimes, the filmmakers in Ireland, the editors in New York, and we've kind of, fallen back on those ways of sharing material together, using shared screens so that we're looking at things and talking about things. In terms of my own personal day, I'm kind of still figuring it out, I think. Definitely trying to spend a little bit of time outside each day, just to, be away from the monotony of the screen and the telephone, even if I'm just doing a walking phone call.
Yeah.
And I have a couple kids and a dog, and so that's tricky.
Yeah, for life. Exactly. For the people watching at home, I just want you to, can you give the quick, what is Impact Partners? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So Impact Partners, the quickest version I can come up with is we're a company that finances documentaries, mainly social issue documentaries, and in some way they touch upon a social issue. And we have a kind of interesting model. We have a group of 45 investors who are people that are passionate about film and want to support artists that are doing this kind of work. And then our staff, we come from filmmaking background and have strong relationships with directors and filmmakers and producers. And so we're basically almost like a matching service. We're finding projects that we think deserve to be made and deserve to be made independently, that there's some reason that it shouldn't just necessarily be produced directly by Netflix or a place like that, but that either because of artistic reasons, journalistic reasons, political reasons, this film really needs to have the editorial control rest with the filmmaker and the artist. And we finance those films and we executive produce them from, often very, very early stages, and then are, very involved in the processes of figuring out a strategy for launching the film into the world, and then finding that distributor that can bring it to audiences. Because, you need to be able to put out your creative vision, and you also need to be able to reach people with that vision. And so we're helping creative directors and producers with that balance between, yes, this is a wonderful film, but will there be buyers for it? Will it reach audiences? Will people want to see this movie? And we've been around for about 13 years. We've produced over 100 feature documentaries and a couple of series as well.
Yeah, it's so important what you, and it's been just wonderful with looking at the films you're putting out into the world. Let's talk about a few of them. Athlete A, tell us about what is Athlete A, and why did you want to get behind this project?
So Athlete A is made by a wonderful pair of directors, Bonnie Cohen and John Shank, who are actually married and have worked together on a number of films. We've worked with them before. And they came to us, I think it was in 2017, 2018, but it was not too long after the Larry Nassar scandal. And, there had been a lot of reporting on the, horrible abuse that happened in the gymnastics professional community, and specifically by him. But there hadn't really been, as far as we could see, a deep kind of investigation of why that was able to happen. What was wrong with the organization USA Gymnastics, which is in charge of all professional gymnastics in the United States, and what history led this to be something that parents and other coaches could not see. And it really has to do with, a corrupt organization. Like when you find abuse in so many other places, usually the corruption is beyond the individual who's doing the abuse. And the desire for sponsorships and money trumping concerns for, in this case, really young athletes. It's that most professional athletes are young, but gymnasts are among the youngest. And, there was a embrace of a certain kind of coaching style from Eastern Europe when the Karolis came over and left the Soviet bloc, and there was really no questioning of that. It involved the kids really being isolated at their camp for training, often not in touch with their parents. Nassar would be there, and other abusive coaches took advantage of this kind of culture. So we were excited because we felt like this is a film that's on something really timely, but they're telling a much bigger story that is very universal, and it follows the the reporters, who were like these scrappy Indianapolis Star, so they're based in Indiana, investigative reporters, as well as the women who were the whistleblowers that worked with those reporters, and the lawyers that defended them, and the police that ultimately, there's kind of a group of heroes in this film. And, you know, you're always looking for something that you can take away and get inspiration from when you're seeing a story that's as dark as this. And so we think they really pulled that off, and relatively early in the production process, because this was a film that, you know, might be perceived as a story people already knew, we really wanted to bring in a buyer that could bring it to a large platform. And so we partnered with Netflix on that film, and it's available now if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah. What's been the response among the gymnast community, among the people who've
been incredible?
Yeah.
It's actually led to, I mean, this is a film where, even though we're called impact partners, it's like, how many films actually really can have an impact? I think this is one that really will. There have already been many, many more women in different countries and in the US who've come forward with their stories of either abuse or kind of being shut down by the leadership of USA Gymnastics. There's just the same way that when the women who were victims first spoke out at Nasser's trial, that opened up doors. The film is now doing that.
Yeah. But it's truly an impact. It's wonderful to see the film have an impact like that, and to start that conversation and prompt people to come forward. I do want to ask you about a subsequent project, or the next project, Immigration Nation. This is one that's sort of near and dear to my heart. I worked on a lot of immigration projects, as you know. Tell us why. Tell us why you want to take this on. It seems like this is such a flashpoint in our society, and what was so unique about what the filmmaker wanted to do on this particular issue?
So yeah, this was also in 2017. I guess a lot of projects, it goes to show you, a lot of documentary projects take a few years to finish. They're not quick, but we've worked with the filmmakers before, and they came to us and said, we don't know how this happened really, but we have incredible access to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. It was basically, the director had made a previous film in which he got to know one of the public relations people from ICE that was now in that position at ICE. And, you know, we were able to quickly finance them to be able to take advantage of this access that they had and get them shooting. Because it's the kind of thing where, with access to an institution like that, if you don't take advantage of it and establish trust and be on the ground, getting that, you know, kind of working collaborative relationship happening right away, it can disappear so easily. Anybody along the way could have shut it down. So we funded them very quickly to do that. We had a lot of trust in them as storytellers and filmmakers, and they basically embedded with different units of ICE all over the country during the family separation period of time, during the detention centers being built up. It was, and then also told other stories that are more, you know, ongoing dilemmas in the field of immigration. And they covered everything from the people that work for ICE point of view, but then they also covered the experience of immigrants and activists and lawyers who are working to defend their clients. And so the goal all along was to really make a very complete picture of our broken immigration system and what the Trump administration's policies have done to individual people on the ground and how it's affected people, and to do that in a very broad way. And so they shot all this material over several years, and we brought it to Netflix and pitched it as a 6-part series, which they bought. And so it's there now. It's 6 hours. It's very heavy. It's really incredible material. The scope of the project, I think, just in terms of having this document for history, to understand what happened when Trump came into office and policies changed so rapidly. I don't think, you know, there's no kind of day-to-day reporting could have captured the depth that a feature documentary, in this case, a 6-part series, can capture from a journalistic point of view.
Yeah. Robert is asking in Galveston question, a very interesting question. He said, how do you deal with politics in your films, and how do you make sure you're not telling the viewer what to do or vote?
Yeah, this was a really interesting one for that. And that was part of why we were so impressed with, this is a good example to answer your question, because the filmmakers were really interested in understanding how the ICE agency works and how and humanizing to a great degree the people that are responsible for enacting policies that politicians say. So it's one thing whether or not you agree with the policy, but to be on the ground, everything comes down to human beings and why they feel compelled to continue doing their job, or do they have a choice or not. So in the case of this project, we really felt like it was, although in the end, I think it does have a point of view, and a lot of feature documentaries do. They're not straight journalism like you might see a newspaper article about, where you lay out this side, and then kind of make your determination. They definitely are, a grayer format for communication, because directors' points of view and their vision are part of what makes a documentary film interesting and entertaining to watch. So I know that the directors in this case do have their own point of view, but they really made an effort to just use what's called more an observational style, where you immerse yourself and you capture what footage you capture, and really, as best you can, narrow down all those hundreds and hundreds of hours into something that reflects your experience of being in that space. And so, sometimes that can help a film that, feels like it's going to come across as political, this side, that side, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't need to if it's more immersive in its approach. And those are the kinds of films we tend to be more interested in at Impact Partners than, an essay film that has a thesis and we're going to prove it by the end. So hopefully that answers Robert's question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it's you have to be sort of careful and thoughtful about how you do it. So this one for sure, I want everyone to check out this project. Go to Netflix and you can find Athlete A. You can also find Impact Immigration Natures. Check out Impact Partners Films website. We can put that up on the screen to get updated on the whole portfolio of what Jenny and her team of 6. Seems like there's more people there, but
well, each film team has many.
Yeah. Exactly. No, I hear you. So check out their website to read up. And there's a lot of great sort of like FAQ resources on, if you're a producer of your documentary, and how to think about documentary film and the financing part of it. And so it's a great like public utility resource that they put together on their website. So it really helped me get through my production. So I do want to ask you about Jacinta. Why did you want to take on Jacinta? What's the story there? Share with us about it.
So it's an interesting counterexample to the 2 films we just talked about, which are, obviously taking on kind of bigger national news stories. This is certainly, there is a big national news story at the heart of this film, but that's not really what it's about. So Jacinta is about these 2 women, a mother and a daughter, who were imprisoned together. The director met them when she was doing a photography project in a women's prison in rural Maine. And she met these 2 women that were, related, in prison at the same time. And she was, basically just like we all are. What's the story here? What's the story behind these women? And she discovered in the course of filming them for a couple of years that Jacinta, who's the younger woman here, also has a daughter. So there are 3 generations of women or girls who kind of are incredibly articulate and smart and wonderful to spend time with, but really suffer from the generational effects of addiction, trauma, and poverty. And she, the director, Jessica Earnshaw, first-time director, just completely committed, really just spent her life with these women and their daughter, Kaylin, for a couple of years. And what you get from that is, and most people I know who have seen this film, who've had anybody in their life who has been touched by addiction, recognizes what you're seeing happen. The impact of addiction of one member of a family on the other members of the family, the decisions that have to be made about protecting people in your family from yourself, which is one of the dilemmas that Jacinta, the title character, has with her daughter, who she doesn't have custody of. She's living with her paternal grandparents. And when you first see her, it would be very easy to judge and say, oh, she's a terrible mother. She's abandoned her daughter. But in fact, she's really trying to break a pattern that she had with her mother, Rosemary, where she really brought her into a world that was negative. And so by separating herself from her daughter, she, in a lot of ways, is protecting her daughter. And so your whole, you sort of start to understand how addiction and trauma work and replicate themselves from generation to generation. And also, and this is the hopeful part, how it can be broken.
Yeah.
And that's really what the film's about. And I wanted to mention it today just because it's an example of one of those films that was kind of caught in the quarantine bubble. It was supposed to premiere in the competition at Tribeca, which was canceled. They went ahead and gave out awards at Tribeca, and it won the Albert Maysles New Director Award there, which was exactly what we kind of hope for when we work with a new director who we see as having so much promise. And now the film has been accepted to a number of film festivals, and I think it will find its way. So it's just an example of like a film that could be perceived as, it's not like flashy, there's no stars in it, but with the right director's approach and vision and dedication to a story like this can really pull off something that hopefully will change her career.
Yeah.
And we'll be seeing a lot more of her.
I hear you. It's so wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing it. We do have a question from Isabella in Dubuque, Iowa. She says, Jenny, you get involved with so many social impact areas. Is there like a particular issue that resonates most with you personally?
That's really interesting because I spent a lot of time thinking about what, first and foremost, what the story is, because that's really, my background as a filmmaker myself, I tend to be interested by the individual subjects in the film, their story, and it's not necessarily about the issue per se. But in my current shoes, on behalf of our investor group, I am thinking a lot about what they're interested in terms of the issues that they care about. And I think that the more personal films, like the one that I just mentioned, are the ones that I'm most drawn to, where you are learning about something about our society and how it works, but through the stories of, very individual people that you feel like you've gotten to know at the end of it. That's what I'm most attracted to. Working on a film like Athlete A or Immigration Nation, you feel incredible satisfaction that you've communicated something that needed to be communicated into the world. So not to take away from that at all, but there is something about the relationship between, a documentary filmmaker when they just really kind of, in the best case scenario, collaborate with individual people to tell their story. And it doesn't really matter to me what the issue is.
Yeah.
But you want to be moved and you want to care and feel differently maybe about that issue in the end.
Yeah. Well said.
Add to that one thing is one area that we are always looking for films on that are sometimes tricky, and you can probably guess why, is environmental issues or issues around climate change. It's very difficult to make a film that doesn't just make you feel hopeless and so that's something that I'm interested in, not always easy to find.
Got it. All right. Tell me about On the Record. What is that project about?
Okay, so On the Record, I feel like I picked a lot of really heavy projects. We do have lighter, funnier projects too. I just want to say that because not all social issue films need to be so difficult. But this is a film about a woman named Drew Dixon, who's in the picture here. And it's a film that really was born out of the Me Too movement because Drew was a music executive and she worked at Jeff Tan in the 90s. And she alleges in the movie, along with 4 or 5 other women, that she was raped and or, in the case of some of the other women, sexually assaulted by Russell Simmons. And she never said anything. There were a lot of ramifications for her life and for her career. Which meant in this case that she was going to speak to a reporter for the New York Times. And the film tracks her through this really difficult decision to do this and her connection with the other women that also came forward at that time, and really explores the specific dilemmas that Black women have in a situation like this, where they, the last thing they want to do is perceived as going against, given the history of incarceration of Black men and the way Black men have been, horribly, incarcerated for all kinds of wrong reasons around these issues. As a Black woman, it was the reason that she had never come forward before is the idea is that she did not want to go against her community, but finding these other women who shared a similar situation to her and kind of realizing that for the sake of future women, Black women, they should be coming forward. And the kind of nuances around race and gender in this space and issue is really what the film explores. And it was, it premiered at Sundance last year. There was a lot of controversy around it because Oprah Winfrey was involved in the film for a while, and she pulled out after it was announced that Russell Simmons was the subject of the film. No one knows exactly why. She, stated she had creative differences, but there was a lot of press and a lot of pressure on the film to feel that when it was screened that it actually had done its job of carefully navigating those set of issues. And it luckily, there was Drew and the other women in the film were at Sundance. There was incredible standing ovations. It got amazing press, and it was picked up by HBO Max. So it is now on HBO Max and available to see. And it's really a really strong film. I highly recommend it.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing this one too. We have a question from Karthik in Mumbai. He wants to know, the buyers, did they express an interest of these social issues ahead of time? Because, just editorializing here, you're not doing the big celebrity-driven films that may be commercial successes here. So how do you, let me add to, how do you think about the risk factor on money on these projects?
It is really tricky. And the answer to the question is that I think some of them do have a bit more of a mandate to pick up those kind of films, but for the most part, they're just they're understandably interested in bringing in films that they think would bring in their audiences, bring ratings or subscribers if it's a streaming platform, and potentially be awards contenders. And so the way we think about it really, and not to say we've cracked this nut, it's really an art more than a science, but when we're looking at a film, the first question we ask ourselves is, do we see a path where this director can create an incredible piece of art that will stand up on its own as a work of art and entertainment, and the social issues will be there because it's part of the story. But it's not, like you asked in the beginning, Kabir, it's not about proving a point or the question that came in around politics. It's about telling a story. So that's the kind of first hurdle that we look at every project that we're considering doing. That being said, there is a lot of risk doing projects like this because there are only so many of that kind of film that buyers will want to take in any given year. And so whether your film will meet its highest goals, or even if it does, if it will, it'd be appreciated for that, there is risk, and our investors are really not, cognizant of that. And it is kind of a dual bottom line approach where the goal is not just to make money back, but also to make this important piece of work that needs to tell this story. So that, there's in that.
Last question about from I don't know who it is. It looks like Maxwell from Alabama. He wants to know, do you miss directing or creative producing? Mm-hmm. And do you have any plans to get back to that?
Oh, yes. I have, over the 10 years that I've been working at Impact Partners, I did finish a film that I've been working on for a long time, and I was working on it with a partner, so that was what allowed me to do it. And I feel like right now I don't have the room, but I do miss it. And, I'm really honored and blessed to be kind of part of the creative process of a number of films, but it isn't the same as leading that ship. And so I do hope to, right at the moment, I'm getting a lot of enjoyment from being in a position where I can help other films get made and contribute in kind of more big picture ways. But I'm certain at some point I will do it again.
Yeah, it's really beautiful what you're doing, and you're providing a service to filmmakers is so desperately needed. But I do also understand the creative impulse. You're a creative individual yourself, and we all love talking to investors and stuff. But sometimes the realization of our own creative visions is something we need to do. And I know you'll do it.
That's a good reminder. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Maxwell, for bringing that up. So that's our show. Thanks so much for being on the broadcast. I want everyone to check out impactpartnersfilm.com and check out their incredible projects. We just talked about 4, but there are many. You can check out the entire portfolio there. Also, there's some FAQs and great resources on their website. Jenny Raskin is a integral part to the documentary ecosystem. So everyone check out what she's doing. Follow her on social media where available. And I want to thank everyone for watching today. With that, that's our show. I want to thank Shane. Let's get the banner up. Shane's a great chef. So if you're in his neck of the woods, try his Spanish tortilla. Knock on his door. He's also really good at hummus, but that's not on the menu these days. So keep it here. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on the next show. Take care, everyone.